And working with Emma Thompson, what was that like?
I mean, Em is like, she's exactly what you imagine that she's going to be. Like, she's a force and she doesn't suffer fools. But when you're with her and she's dedicated to what you're doing, it's like unlike anything else.
Hey there, it's Connor Muller and welcome to Let's Chat Showbiz. This podcast is all about Australian showbiz. We're talking the glitz, the glam, the tough times and everything in between. Let's get this show on the road. Today's guest is an award-winning filmmaker, director, writer and producer who has worked alongside some of the biggest stars in the industry. She directed Emma Thompson in the BAFTA and Golden Globe nominated comedy Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. It's an honour to welcome Adelaide's very own Sophie Hyde.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Now, you've obviously done a lot of work, director, writer, producer. What was the first project that you did and how did that become?
Oh my goodness, what was the first project? I mean, I grew up doing youth theatre, so I was always making, I did dance and then theatre. So I was like constantly in action in that way. My first film was a film called Girls on Loose, which was a documentary set in women's toilets. And it was like interviewing women in toilets about that kind of space. And also it had these kind of song and dance numbers where people were dressed up, singing and performing. So it was a mix of the things that I love, which is kind of documentary and real world venues, I guess, and then kind of a very kind of theatrical sideline thing.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Now, let's move on to 2013. You directed and produced a film called 52 Tuesdays. Tell me about that.
52 Tuesdays was it was part of Film Lab, which was a low budget initiative designed to like get a new generation of filmmakers coming out of Adelaide. We had to go in with just an idea, no script or anything, just a one-page idea. And the idea was we'll do a lab and then come out with a film that we're going to make for a low budget at the end. So I went in with my team, Matt Cormack, who's a writer, and Brian Mason, who's a cinematographer, editor. And we were all kind of producing. We had this idea to make a film where it's set and shot every Tuesday for a year, and that we film it every Tuesday. It's set every Tuesday and it's for 52 Tuesdays or a year. And so the kind of conceit of the film, the restriction of the film and the rules around it kind of drove the story. So the story only kind of developed later, and then we shot the film in order, and we wrote it as we went, and we had this beautiful cast who kind of came in, and each week they would rehearse up the next bit. They'd only get the material for the next week, and they would build and change what we were doing over the course of making it.
Yeah, wow. Wow. So you did every single Tuesday?
Every Tuesday.
For 2 years.
Yeah.
Was that tricky at any points? Was there any Tuesdays that it had like a special event or people were like, we can't do this Tuesday?
It was just if we had something else, we had to work something out.
Yeah.
Do you know? So, I mean, we were very committed, and part of the idea behind that project was to make something at a low budget that you could never make at any other time, and it would be better at a low budget. So now in my life, that seems really tricky to make something where I'd have to do every Tuesday. But at the time, we just wanted to get in, like put our fingers in the pie and make something, do you know? And we had to have a local cast. We needed to have equipment that we could have here. We couldn't be bringing people in and out. So it kind of dictated the film that we were making, you know? There were certainly weeks where it was like one single shot.
Yeah. Like 5 minutes.
And I think the last day we filmed for like 20 hours. And so apart from us, like the core team, everyone else rotated. So no one else did that sort of shift.
Wow. In 2018, you were the director and creator of the 6-part series Effing Adelaide, which had an incredible cast as well. Tell me about working on that and where that came from.
Well, the same creative team, Matt Cormack and I, decided that we wanted to make a drama comedy where we wanted to explore what it felt like to do episodic, like to come back and return with the same characters. So we put it together, and then we just knew who we wanted to work with. It was like we wanted to work with Kate Box because she was an old friend of ours and she's brilliant, We wanted to work with Tilda Cobham-Hervey again, who was in 52 Tuesdays. And then we just started to like build a world of brilliant cast members around that. We got Pam Rabe to come in, and that was amazing. And we made that very much the way we'd make an indie film. So the same kind of team, and we shot it across Christmas, if I remember, and we did a beautiful like rehearsal in this old Adelaide house, and then it was just really fun to do that.
Yeah.
I think we always thought we might do another series, but we never ended up doing it. We kind of went down the path a little bit. And then we met Brendan McLean to do that.
Yeah.
To do the show. We didn't know him before and he was like a pop star. And I was watching his material just going like, oh my God, this is so brilliant. So he came into that, which was gorgeous.
Okay. Yeah,
too.
right.
Yeah.
You mentioned there Pamela Rabe, obviously Australian theatre television icon. What was it like working with Pamela?
I loved it actually because I remember watching her when I was young, like she was in the theatre. She was always doing these amazing shows and just thinking, whoa, who's that woman, you know? And then when we were looking for this character, her name came up and I hadn't been working a lot with actors that I didn't know already at that point. Like I often worked with people I already knew or new actors. And she came in and she taught me some great things, like one of which was just really great actors come in really prepared. And so you have this idea that she might be like, whatever, what is this show? But she wasn't. She was like deeply, deeply prepared. And she holds a room so intensely, but she also, if she is going to invest in you, she fully gives over and trusts you and works with you. And that was such a gorgeous thing. And that's been my experience working with lots of these really excellent actors, is that actually it's such a brilliant space watching their craft and building that trust together.
Now in 2022, you produced the documentary A Dreamtime of Georgie Stone, which I thought was brilliant at the time, and it's quite an important story. Tell me a bit about that for people that aren't familiar with it as well.
Dream Life of Georgie Stone, yeah. It's a Netflix film, but it was made by a filmmaker called Maya Newell, who's a documentary director that I've worked with a number of times. We made a film together called In My Blood It Runs as well. Dream Life of Georgie Stone is about an actor called Georgie, who's a trans woman and has been really at the forefront of like shifting the law around what's possible for young trans people in terms of medical transition. She's like also just an amazing, incredible person. And the film that we made was a kind of looking back and flashing back through her life of the various archives and also opening up the idea that she could speak about her dream future. So like looking forward into what her life was going to be. And she's just a beautiful, very strong, very interesting character. Yeah.
Definitely. You also directed Emma Thompson in BAFTA and Golden Globe nominated comedy Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. What was that experience like?
I had a lot of fun. I loved that film. Like, we went over to I came onto it and sort of was doing some scripting from Australia, but it was 2021. So it was right in the middle of COVID stuff. And so we had the exemption to travel over to the UK and film it. So we went over, just Brian and I, who was shooting it. And it was full masks and screens and there was hardly anyone on the flights. It was one of those times where you're like in airports and it's empty and really strange. But we went over in lockdown and we went to Norwich to film and the whole city was in lockdown. So we just felt like we were walking through a ghost town. And then we were making this very intimate work because it's basically set in one room between two people.
I'm Leo. You must be Nancy. May I come inside?
Yes. And so we kind of locked ourselves in a room with Daryl and Emma, who are the actors in it. And we just workshopped and rehearsed this film and then went on to a very tiny set with a very small crew and made this very intimate kind of work. Had a beautiful time. We felt like we were genuinely in a bubble, like a lot of us did during COVID, but in that we got to make this thing. And we just had so much fun. And then Brian and I flew home, did quarantine in the hotel here and started editing even in that quarantine.
Wow.
Got our edit suite brought in because we were like, what are we going to do here? And that was, it was such a beautiful film to make at that time because it was so about two people connecting. And it felt like a moment where we really wanted to talk about intimacy. I very much enjoyed it.
And working with Emma Thompson, what was that like?
I mean, Em is like, she's exactly what you imagine that she's going to be. Like, she's a force and she doesn't suffer fools. But when you're with her and she's dedicated to what you're doing, it's like unlike anything else. Like, she's just really smart, talented. I just really loved working with her. She made it very clear to me on like day 2 or even day 1 maybe that she was like, decided she was good with what we were doing and she made it really out loud and open and that just allows you to relax and then make something together. she's just one of those actors who can come in and give you any different version of things. So, but she wanted to be directed. I remember she was like, I want to be directed. I've been on too many things where I'm just told where to stand.
Yeah.
And the great challenge of being a like massive star is that sometimes people don't tell you much,
Yeah.
you know? And yeah, she's gorgeous though. And like she's dedicated to her ideas and yeah, and it was really nice going out with her on the press tour as well because she's so determined to speak truthfully, you know, about things. And she was exploring ideas about her own body and body image in that were really present, and she really wanted to talk about them.
And it was a comedy, but it did touch on some very important topics in that, didn't it?
So true. Like it is a comedy. Like and we one of the things we said to each other early on was like it needs to remain funny. Like it has to be funny. But of course you also want there to be reason to watch something, you know, something underneath it that is real. And so yeah, stuff about body image and sex work and intimacy became really important.
Now, I'm really excited to talk to you about Jimpa. We've seen it at the Adelaide Film Festival recently. You obviously directed Jimpa. Tell me about where it came from, the idea.
Yeah, it was like, because the idea came from sort of elements of my own personal life, it's sort of a long-winded story, but essentially like my dad had died a few years ago and he was this very eccentric gay man and very kind of much an activist, you know, in the world. And then I had a child, Ord, who was a teenager or going into being a teenager when my dad died. And they were also exploring their queer identity, coming out as a trans person, really speaking very publicly about these ideas. And after my dad died, I just wished that they could have been together. I was like, oh, if only they could have been in a room together talking about this feeling, you know, of being a kind of public-facing person where your personal life is very politicized. And so I wanted to put them into a room, and that's where the impulse for Jimpa came from. So this grandfather-grandchild in a queer family. And then my writing partner, he was like, you know, there also has to be this middle person that's like the between generation, the kind of sandwich generation, as it were, and the kind of ideas about parenting that kind of cross over between these three generations. So it became this story about a filmmaker who takes a non-binary teenager to Amsterdam to visit their grandfather, and they end up in this kind of exploration of parenting and what it means to, you know, and the stories that we tell around our families, essentially. Yeah.
And of course, Olivia Colman is in the film. Did you always have Olivia in mind for that role?
I always had her in mind, but we couldn't get the film to her for ages. And so we started thinking about other people, and I was like, oh, okay. And then eventually we got it to Olivia, and my gosh, I'm just so glad that we did. Like we knew we really wanted a very warm actor in the role, and because the role can be quite a kind of separated or like seemingly cold kind of role. And Olivia is anything but cold, you know. And so we really wanted her to be in. And I also, because it was a queer story, I really wanted an actor who would help us bring in a broader audience, or somebody that people would be like, we're coming to watch this, you know, because there's still, queer stories are very often still kind of sidelined.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Do you remember the first time you spoke to Olivia?
I do. Yeah. We had a Zoom and I was really nervous. You're always nervous before you meet these people, do you know, because you're like, you don't actually know how they're going to be, you know, and they have quite a lot of power. She got on the Zoom and she was just charming, and like, she just was really like lovely about the script and asked a lot of questions, and you know, she's just very, very down to earth, Olivia. Like there's no pretense about her, you know. We just had a really nice chat, and she met Ord, my child, and we laughed a lot, and it was very, very easy. And I think they told me really quickly, yeah, she wants to do it. And then we just had to work out the timing, which was always the tricky thing.
Of course. You mentioned they're your child, Ord. Obviously, they were in the film as well.
Yeah.
What's it like working with one of your family members on set, long days on set?
I love it. Look, I've always worked with my partner, Brian. He's a cinematographer and editor.
Yeah.
So in terms of our lives, we're all very embroiled. Matt Cormack, who writes with us, we grew up together. Like, we're all very close. So it's no surprise that Ord kind of became part of our filmmaking family as well as our family. It's really different with your own child, though, because you have this whole other relationship and you look after each other in this, more intense way. But I honestly, I loved collaborating with them and hearing the way their brain worked. And they grew up on film sets and in writing rooms, so it's very natural to them to do that.
Yeah.
I certainly had moments where I was like, am I looking after them well enough as a mum? That's a really different looking after than a director.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And you shot that in South Australia, but also in Amsterdam.
Yeah, we shot here in South Australia first.
Yeah.
Then we went to Amsterdam for a long period, and then we came back and did another 5 days in Adelaide.
Yeah. And what was that like, filming in Amsterdam?
Oh, I mean, it's beautiful, Amsterdam, and there's a lot of bike riding, and there was a lot of just being in awe at where we were, you know. It was huge because suddenly you're bringing a whole team over and then you build an entire team there. But what happened was, because it's a personal film, you open up this thing and then everyone kind of comes in and all the crew kind of join you and the cast, and everyone sort of becomes very open because they're like, it's personal. I'll bring my personal self as well. And so you build this excellent group of people around you that are all making together. And it was weird to shoot somewhere else, somewhere that was so sprawling and everything. But also then you get to sort of have all these canals and all this gorgeousness and all these Dutch people on screen.
Tell me about Closer Productions and how that became and what it is for people that aren't familiar.
Yeah, Closer Productions, we're a production company here in South Australia. We've been together for, officially 15 years or something like that. Brian and I had a kind of partnership called Closer Productions originally, and then we teamed up with a documentary maker called Matt Bate and a producer called Rebecca Summerton, and we sort of formed this thing. And it's always been a bit of a growing, mutating company, but we're essentially a production company. We work in film, documentary, and television, and we all take different parts of that. And we've made things together on and off for that whole time. And at times different people come in and out, but there is a kind of closer family that sort of roll across the projects.
And you also did The Hunting, is that right?
Yeah.
And that had an incredible cast in it as well.
Yeah.
What was it like working on The Hunting?
Yeah, The Hunting came from a very sort of dark idea about teenagers sharing explicit images of their friends online. And this kind of concept of consent in the modern world, when it's not just about, touching each other, but what does consent look like sort of further along? And we always wanted it to be a big ensemble of teenagers and teachers and parents. And so it's really fun. I always had this very strong sense of what that show would be. And then working with SBS to create it, it just meant that we got to bring in all these great cast members like Keddie and Richard Roxburgh and Sam Reid, Jester Gouw, but also have this brilliant cast here of young actors that I loved working with them so much. And we had this beautiful room where we would build and generate their characters and their storylines. And so many of them have gone on to be actors in the industry and to make their own work even. So that part of it I adored. Yeah.
Now, how do you manage the long days on set for you personally?
Once you're actually on set, you don't even notice it being a long day. The trick of being on set is that you also then have to do all of the other work that's off set, the preparation, the looking over the material and everything. On set, you're kind of carried by the energy of all of the crew and the team and everything. It's kind of a marathon. You do have to get a bit set fit, I think, and you build up to that in pre-production. Because I've only done limited series or films, my on-set time is limited. So I'm like, okay, I can really go for it. I think those people that shoot TV for a year or whatever, I'm not sure how they do that. How do you have a life?
Yeah.
You must have to be much more consistent and less obsessive, I think, at a point. For me, it's a pleasure to be on set. It's exhausting, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Now, often you're always behind the camera.
Yeah.
Did you ever want to be in front of the camera acting?
I grew up doing youth theatre, and that meant you're an actor because that's what you do. And I knew really early, I was like, I am so not an actor. Like I could just feel it. I just knew the people that were really great actors, like Kate Box was there with me. They just were in it in this way where I felt like I was thinking about it. I was always thinking about what was next and what else was happening. And I had the good fortune to be in youth theatre where you have professional directors, designers, writers working with you. So I knew that there were these other roles. I didn't feel like the whole focus was on the acting.
Yeah.
So it was really early that I knew it wasn't for me. And I have no desire at all.
Yeah, right.
I love actors. I'm in awe of them, but no way.
Yeah, right.
I hate being in front of a camera.
And here you are.
This is fine because we're just talking.
You're not playing anybody.
Fine.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
You mentioned there Kate Box. You've obviously worked with her many times.
Yeah.
When did you first meet Kate? And
I met her at youth theatre.
So it was
like called Unley Youth Theatre at the time, which became various other things. I remember she was on stage. She's actually a bit younger than me, but because she was tall, I thought she was older than me. And she was wearing a suit and a big tie. And she was like going up for the board or something. And I thought, oh, who's that cool person? And only after a while did we start working together on a show. And I just loved her. After we were at uni, we lived together for a while here in Adelaide in a share house before she went to NIDA.
Right.
And so we were very close then. And then we sort of went on different paths. Like we knew each other, but she became Kate Box, superstar, and I started making films. And it was kind of only later that we came back together to work again.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, which is absolutely delightful.
Did you see her in Wentworth?
Yes.
How good was that?
Amazing. And
Brilliant.
Deadlock as well.
Oh, yeah, Deadlock, which is coming back.
She's so brilliant.
Yeah. What is your favourite Australian TV show? Australian.
I loved The Newsreader, actually.
Yes.
The last episode of the first season, there's like this one scene between Sam and Anna, and I just thought it was amazing television. Like their performances were so good. I loved that. It's probably my favourite.
Yeah, wow. Other than Olivia Colman and Emma Thompson, who's the most famous person you've met? Tough question. Or people.
Because of course they're
Well, they're
fairly
pretty up there,
famous.
but
I must have met other famous people because you sort of find yourself in I remember being in a room with Demi Moore when we were at Sundance with a doc before we were there with drama, and we were in this room, and I remember being like, oh my God, she's so tiny, like such a tiny, that's the thing about actors, they're so often very small, like 3/4 size people. But she was tiny and her hair was so straight that it was like ironed, and she's gorgeous, but she looked slightly odd, and I was like, she doesn't look at all odd in all the photos. But that was a real surprise to me. I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah. We didn't really talk. I mean, we must have said hello, but also the weird thing about famous people is you think you know them because you look at them and you're like, they're familiar to you and you're not familiar to them, right? So as soon as you start talking to them, of course, they're just very like everyone else with a little bit more charisma usually. We did go to Olivia Colman's 50th birthday party, and it was like Benedict Cumberbatch, Paul Mescal, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, all on the dance floor with us, Paul Rudd, and that was Gillian Anderson.
Wow.
That was pretty hectic.
Yeah.
But we weren't like friends with them. We were just standing on a dance floor with them.
Only dance floor, that's it. How cool, how exciting. You obviously live in Adelaide. Yeah. Do you like Adelaide?
I love it. Yeah, I never thought I'd stay when I was younger. Always thought I'd leave, and I sort of did for a minute and then came back, and I love being here, like the ability to focus and like put your head down, to live well, to still be in nature, like all of those things, to have old friends around. You know, I think it can be stifling at times too, like any small place can, but it has given me the ability to have the life that I want and not to get too caught up in an industry that is often really overwhelming for other places.
Yeah. Do you find that there's a lack of opportunities in that for people here in South Australia, or not too? Is it growing, or?
It's definitely growing. Like people stay more than they used to. Like, look, it's a mixed bag because we are separated from a lot of the industry. I think it's our great strength as well, is to not just be hustling and just be networking all the time. It does mean that, you know, things can be slower for you. You have to like re-meet people a lot of times, or they kind of forget you because you're not in their eyesight a lot. at the same time, you know, the more, you know, you have like the Raka boys, like the Philippou brothers and the Emma and Leela who made Lesbian Space Princess kind of working here now among a lot of other really interesting filmmakers. So I kind of feel like there's a lot happening and there's an ability to work from here.
Now, at the end of each episode, I ask a question to ask the next guest.
Ooh.
Our last guest was Lucy Maunder, theatre performer, and she said, "What is your funniest travel story?"
I mean, that trip when I went to You Leo Grande, I mean, it was a crazy travel experience to just be everywhere and it was empty. And
of course,
we were traveling in business class, which we'd never done before. And it was like the plane was empty, do you know? And
like a private jet
building, it was like that. And we just were like, everything's masked and, you know, whatever. But on the way home, we knew we had to go into hotel quarantine. And there was also only 5 or 6 people that we could see on the plane. But our friend Eamon happened to be next to us on the plane. And Eamon is Eamon Farron, who's in Jimpa, who we didn't know particularly well, but we knew him a little bit. Yeah. And he just happened to be flying back to Australia as well. And he was next to us amongst the 4 people on the flight, do you know? And so we ended up in like maybe Dubai airport or one of those airports, like having lunch with him and like having this beautiful time. And then we got off and then there were like armed guards who put us onto buses to take us to hotel quarantine. So then we ended up in the same hotel as him, but messaging each other like, what are you doing? I'm running around the room. Me too, I'm running around the room. And now, of course, we're friends because we made Jimpa together. Yeah. But at that time, we knew each other less well.
Yeah, wow. I think we forget how bad it was back then during COVID.
It's really extreme when you say it like that, isn't it? It didn't, like, I think we've all kind of like blanked it out.
Yeah, 100%. It was scary at the time.
Yeah, it was scary. Yeah.
Did you do much writing during COVID?
Well, we wrote Jimpa, the first draft, and I came on to Leo Grande and like rewrote those scripts with our writer. So I guess so, yeah. I mean, the way that COVID operated here for us, I feel like we were really lucky. We had space and I work from home already and a garden and things like that and my family. So I was in the best possible situation to be able to work. I feel for people that were in big cities and didn't have anyone around or, you know, I think it was really tough for some people.
And obviously Melbourne was much further off than what we were in.
It was really intense for me.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Now, a question for the next guest. Could be absolutely anything. We don't know who it is. It could be anyone.
Okay. Tell us about a time that you've felt very loved.
Oh, I love that question. And now for you, when was a time that you felt very loved?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, I have this real feeling that like where your attention is where you love. And like, I got to say that when you're directing, there is something really beautiful where everyone is like making something that is in your head and everyone's like, everyone's eyes are on you or they're with you. And there's nothing like that feeling of being like, I can't believe all these people are doing the thing that I just sort of thought up or we've just decided to do. Yeah. So that's a very loved feeling.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, my final question is for you. Is there anybody you think would be good on Let's Chat Showbiz?
I think that Leela and Emma, who made Lesbian Space Princess, would be amazing on here.
Sure,
They're very funny and their film is excellent.
It is, and it's full of brilliant cast as well. So many,
Oh my God, and Richard Roxburgh in that is so funny. I found him hilarious.
I haven't seen it yet. I need to see it.
I have to see it. Yeah, please see it. I think it's on like video on demand now.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sophie.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. If you want more episodes of Let's Chat Showbiz, you can follow along on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook for all you oldies. See you next time on Let's Chat Showbiz.